Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 0.1 doc presentations. As most of you know, my name is Anna, and today I will be your guide. The tour should last about 20 minutes. In the first 15 minutes, I will guide you through some of the specimens. In the final part, there will be time for questions. Feel free to choose a comfortable spot at any point, or walk around the space on your own pace. I need to ask you to wear a face mask and keep a safe distance from one another for the duration of the tour. If everyone could follow me, I would like to just say a few things about touring in the meantime. The theory and practice of touring is called tourism. My experiment started with the theme of the traveler and tourist, concepts of anticipation, expectation, exploration, transient objects, within an immersive experience that researches relations of objects, space, spectators. This specific tour relates to a journey through a part physical and part fictional space, but also back and forth between the past, present and future. It will therefore visit both archival specimens and touch upon future plans or models. Sometimes a photograph will be shown. 0.0. Some of you might remember this moment. During the beginning of my imaginary voyages, objects were carried and placed in space by spectators/performers, accompanied by a sentence that made the installation into a collection of images and meanings, a collage of sorts. For example, a traveler wanders indefinitely and knows no home place. I quote myself saying at the end of the presentation, "The presence or absence of the protagonist in my story, the position of the visitor, are the things I would like to investigate." In the time that followed, I went after the idea of sparking a dialogue between objects, space, spectators, and somewhat abstract concepts. In front of you, you will see some tables or sketches of tables that were made in this period. How can a table transform from object to space was another way of saying, when does a gathering become an encounter? I lost interest in scripting an interaction around the table itself and shifted to making objects inspired by the table, such as cutlery. The following attractions en route are mostly part of a 2-week period in the Melkfabriek in Den Bosch, where I experimented with the performative objects moving through space. You can play around with the objects if you like. I invited people from disciplines such as archaeology and yoga to use my work as the scenography of an encounter. Of course, this plan was somewhat problematic under current circumstances, and therefore didn't happen. However, it led to interesting conversations as well as the chance to have one-on-one interactions with other spectators who used the objects as props. I realized that the space was functioning as a table rather than the other way around. I translated the encounters to photographic documentations, which you can see on the tooth. Although the corona measures challenged me in a good way, they also urged me to find ways to work in the context of the pandemic rather than around it. I was still missing a lot of scenography though. How does the material experience relate to a specific space? Stretching between the role of a participant and editor, I also wondered, how do I relate to the work? What is my role in this encounter? How do the spectators and objects relate to each other with or without my presence? I like to describe this search as the constant state of becoming. This also became the starting point for my not really an essay of Think, titled Traveling Bodies, Traveling Minds, touching upon the immaterial theater. In the make sessions, the idea started to shape of combining physical objects with an online interaction, an encounter between spectator and material or space, as well as spectator and my ideas. The format for sharing my ideas I discovered through the shared performance lecture, where Martjan became the unsuspecting performer and I became the narrator. I would like to shortly introduce the latter by means of a fragment of a current experiment. You will find this in the corner. Close your eyes. You can imagine something if you like. Move somewhere you have in mind. Or you can alternately just listen to my voice. Feel your feet pressing against the ground. Experience the here and now. With your eyes closed, take off your headphone. You can open your eyes now. Welcome. I would like to introduce you to a real-time experience, one which is starting to unfold in front of you as I speak. The story began before it came to be narrated. An interaction already started to unravel between a box holding a space, and a space holding the box as well as other bodies. The beginning of this specific occurrence is therefore not specific. For that reason, we could describe it as a constant state of becoming. Although narration is a merely optional element of a life occurrence, you will find that in this case, the narration is actually of great importance to the progression of time, the perception of space, and the interpretation of its characters. The story will in fact be conveyed through other means. My voice is but an addition to a reality. However, the narrator will guide you through a process of engaging into an encounter. By means of this introduction, you might have already come to understand the identity of the first character of the gathering, the narrator. It is uncertain whether the narrator is a specific person or merely a literary voice, to which extent the information delivered to the spectators is being born at this moment, or whether it is scripted. Therefore, it is also sadly, perhaps, unspecified whether the narrator is the creator of the story or a character developed by the creator of the story. The next character that I would like to introduce is right in front of you. It is an abandoned molar, a rejected body part which has been removed as a parasitic part of a body, and which functions as a place where something new lives, develops, or parasitizes. This demonstration is part of what I hope will become a series of traveling performances. This time, the table becomes the host of the performance. As the first one is almost ready to travel by mail to the spectators' homes, I would like to further experiment with the participation of the spectator. How subtle or essential is it? Drawing from Josephine Machon's Watching, Attending, Sense-Making, Spectatorship in Immersive Theaters, and her concept of spectators inhabiting the performance's world, I am still in search of the right amount of activity, emancipation, and role assignment when it comes to spectatorship, and this is the main experiment in my next encounters. I would also like to experiment with the inclusion of space, transcending the format of the box and making use of the environment. In the Friday Labs, I started experimenting with light and shadows, with the idea to make a narration through projected light and shadows. I would like to invite the spectator to add to the story with the use of objects or their hands to create shadows. Finally, I am in search of the magic of the theater. I would like to use a quote from my text of The Immaterial Theater. To me, perhaps for this exact reason, darkness is the beginning of imagination. It is the abstract space I encounter before I start to dream, where I experience a simultaneous detachment from and connection to the world. Some works that I consider to be inspiring in finding the magic of the theatre are Benjamin Verdonk's Not All Who Wander Are Lost and Zweigman's Spectrum. At this point, the metaphors of the traveler and tourist describe the ways in which I make and think, the transitory state or performativity of my work in the making process. The focus, however, lays in the design of encounters. Through a visual dialogue between separate objects and meanings, I search for in-between states of existing situations. Well, I suppose that brings us to the end of the audio tour. It has been my pleasure to have you here. We now have 5 minutes for questions. You can remove your headphones or earphones for this part of the tour.